He says, and if you love me, you'll guard my commands. If you have that love relationship with me, that deep relationship with me, you'll guard what I've commanded you. Now, hopefully we can make the connection without a leap that he's talking about all of the Torah, not just the things in red letters in some red letter Bibles. Although I'd love to see a red letter Bible that puts all the words of Yahweh in red too. Because then we would go with his words properly. But he says, if you love me, you shall guard my commands. Now, all of this leads into verse 16. If you do these things, if you love me, if you guard my commands, if you're doing what's honoring to the Father, if you're doing these greater works, if you're walking in the way and the truth and the life, if you're following me, which I'm preparing a place for you, if you follow me, if you're doing all these things, then, verse 16, I shall ask the Father, and he shall give you another helper to stay with you forever. This is the Spirit of the truth, whom the world is unable to receive because it does not see him or know him, but you know him, for he stays with you and shall be in you. Now let's stop right there for a second. He says, first of all, and I'm not trying to attack anybody in mainstream Christianity or any other belief system, but I'm sorry, the Spirit that you're claiming to have is not the one being talked about in John 14 unless you did everything prior to John 14 and verse 16. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Okay, and I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to pick on anybody. I'm not trying to offend or insult anybody. There are things that are if, then. And you don't get the then unless you do all the ifs. I don't know how else to explain it. It's not rocket science, folks. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean you didn't have any interaction with the Ruach prior to what he's talking about here. What he's talking about here is a different level of manifestation of what's going on as far as, we're going to get to this in a minute, how he interacts with you. How he interacts with you. This is all about him interacting with you. He's talking about himself. He's the way, he's the truth, he's the life. Everything about this is about understanding him and your relationship with him. Now listen to how this plays out. He's going to give you the Spirit of truth. Didn't we already discuss the truth? Who's the truth? Yeshua. What is the truth? The Torah, the Word. I'm going to give you the Spirit of the Word, of the Torah, of Yeshua. Now, in case that's not clear enough, look what it says here. Very interesting, verse 17. Whom the world is unable to receive. So the world is unable to receive this Spirit of truth. Why? Because it does not see him or know him. Okay, so it doesn't see him or know him, but you know him. He's saying you already know him. For he stays, because he stays with you, and shall be in the future in you. Okay, so let's ask the question, who is it that the world was not receiving and did not see or know, but they knew and was staying with them? Yeshua? Is that a stretch? Okay? In other words, this Ruach, this Spirit that they're talking about, the Spirit of truth, he's saying, I'm going to ask the Father to send you something that you already have, but I'm not going to be here. So I'm going to have to interact with you on a whole different level. And in case that's not clear, we simply read verse 18. I shall not leave you orphans. I am coming to you. How come verse 18 doesn't trump everybody's Trinitarian nonsense? How come verse 18 doesn't fix the problems for everybody? This is not another third thing. Yeshua says, I am coming to you. Everything I just talked about, Yeshua saying, all this stuff I'm talking about is me. I am coming to you. But I'm not going to be in the flesh anymore. I am the Spirit of truth. This is the new way Yeshua is interacting with those who love him and believe in him and all of the other stuff that he said prior to this verse. Does that make sense? Can we kind of wrap our brains around that? He says, look, the Spirit of truth whom the world is unable to receive because it doesn't see him or know him. And that was true. You need to have eyes to see and ears to hear and a heart to receive, and then you can have a relationship develop with him. But what did he tell them all the time? That they were blind, they couldn't see, their eyes were closed, their ears were closed, their hearts were closed. The world cannot see him. And it says here, but you know him, for he stays with you and shall be in you. Now realize this. How hard do you think this was for Yeshua to try to explain to his disciples who were not, by the way, receiving up to this point, that he had to die and that he had to go away and that he had to be resurrected. Because up to this point, he told them dozens of times, we're going to go to Jerusalem. They're going to arrest me. They're going to kill me. And remember he told them that over and over again? And they kept saying things like, oh, be kind to yourself, Master. That's never going to happen. After all, you're Messiah. They're not going to kill you. They're not. And he was like, oh, you guys don't get it. This is the way it has to be. Otherwise, this whole thing doesn't work right. And so here he's finally getting his last words to them. Remember, he's hours away from this ordeal. Okay, he's hours away from all of this. And he's trying to say, look, but don't worry. Remember these words that when this all happens, you'll remember, I am coming to you. I'm not going to leave you orphans. So this spirit that he's talking about is himself. You see how this all is important in the context of understanding when he says, when you ask whatever in my name. Well, you should be being led by the truth. It keeps going back to the truth. The Spirit, the helper, guess who's your helper? Yeshua. He's always been your helper. But notice those ifs. If, and then. He says, I'm not going to leave you orphans, I'm coming to you. Look at verse 19. Yet a little while, and the world no longer sees me, and you shall see me. But you shall see me because I live, and you shall live. In that day you shall know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. Through what? The Spirit of truth. He who possesses my commands and guards them, it is he who loves me. Doesn't that go back to 1 John also? Those who say they know him and don't keep the commands are liars. Because after all, how could you say you love someone you don't know him? And so he says, look, if you love me, guard my commands. He says, look, he who possesses my commands and guards them is he who loves me. It's not he who possesses my commands and plays with them. He who possesses my commands and does them occasionally. It's he who guards them loves me. He who guards them, it is he who loves me. And he who loves me shall be loved by my Father. So loving Yeshua is loving the truth, is loving the Word, is loving the Torah, is loving the light. Do you see how this plays out? And if you do that, you'll be loved by his Father, by the Father. It says, if you love me that way, you shall be loved by my Father also. And I shall love him and shall manifest myself to him. Then Yeshua will manifest and reveal himself to you. Ooh. He says he'll do that after you do all these other things. Not first. Christianity tries to flip it upside down. He manifests to you first, and then other things come and happen. No. He says, if you do all of these things, then I will start to manifest myself to you. That's hopefully what you guys have been experiencing through these teachings, where the more you're understanding the Word, the more he's manifesting himself to you. And you're understanding the fullness of who and what he is. See, it was a very surface level before. But now he's manifesting himself to you. Because why? Because you love him and he loves you and the Father loves you. And so what are they doing? They're opening up your eyes and opening up your ears and opening up your heart to deeper understanding. Verse 22, it's Yehuda, not the one from Kiriath, said to him, Master, what has come about that you are about to manifest yourself to us and not to the world? Ooh. What was that he said? Manifesting to them and not to the world. Yeshua is not manifesting himself to the world. He's manifesting himself to those who believe, those whose eyes are open and ears are open, whose hearts are ready to receive. He'll manifest himself to the world when he returns. It won't be very pretty either. He's coming with a rod of iron, not a tickle feather. Okay? And so he's coming, and then he'll manifest. All eyes will see him coming. He's going to manifest himself to the world at that point. So Judah, not Iscariot, says, Master, what has come about that you are about to manifest yourself to us and not the world? They still weren't getting it. And he answers and said, if anyone loves me, he shall guard my word, my Torah, my truth, and my Father shall love him, and we shall come to him and make our stay with him. Those are the ones that are getting it, that are getting in, that are going to build a relationship, that are becoming the type of person that the Father wants to live with forever. That's what he's saying. He says, those are the people, the ones who love me and guard my word are the ones the Father shall love and want to spend time with, and we're going to stay with that person. We're going to want to stay with them forever. He who does not love me does not guard my words, and the word which you hear is not mine, but of the Father who sent me. He's saying, look, if you're not guarding my word, you don't love me. And by the way, if you don't love me and are not guarding my word, he says, the word which you hear is not mine. He says, but of the Father. He says, so you're not rejecting me, he's saying you're rejecting the Father. Do you understand that? Rejecting the word is not really rejecting Yeshua. Yeshua says, you're not hurting me. You're shamefully behaving before the Father. You're dishonoring the Father. He says, he who does not love me, again, verse 24, does not guard my words, and the word which you hear is not mine, but of the Father who sent me. These words I've spoken to you while still with you. But the Helper, the set-apart Spirit, whom the Father shall send in my authority, he shall teach you all and remind you of all that I have said. This is him trying to communicate. This is how I will continue to communicate with you. I've been communicating with you in person, panim al panim, face to face, and in the future I will not be doing it that way. I'll be doing it through this thing known as the Spirit of Truth. Okay, Ruach Emet, the Spirit of Truth. And so here he has this verse. He goes, look, and the Spirit is going to do what? Teach you all and remind you of what? Everything that I have said to you. Now guess what? The Spirit can't remind you of anything unless you put it in there in the first place. We weren't there when Yeshua was speaking, so how do we get to know what he said? We get to read it. We get to read it, so we have to go and read it so that we'll know what he said. And he says here again, in verse 27, he goes, peace I leave to you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. You heard that I said to you, I am going away and I am coming to you. If you did love me, you would have rejoiced that I said I am going to the Father, for my Father is greater than I. Does that settle it anyway, by the way, for everybody? Are Yeshua and the Father equal? Yeshua, did he think so? No. He says, my Father is greater than I. Greater in what? Authority. He says, my Father is greater than I. He says, in other words, you were all excited about me and what I could do for you and my authority and the blessings that I bring and the healings and the miracles. He says, that's nothing. He says, I'm going to my Father, so don't be afraid that I'm leaving. You're going to be getting now the Father's blessings. My Father's greater than I. He says, get more excited about that. He says, and now I have told you before it takes place that when it takes place, you shall believe. I shall no longer talk much with you, for the ruler of this world is coming, and he possesses none at all in me. But in order for the world to know that I love the Father, and that as the Father commanded me, so I am doing, rise up and let us go from here. So, look, all of that chapter was to explain one verse, or two verses talking about the name. When he talks about authority, okay, it has to do with reputation and authority. And he says, look, understand this in John 14, all of this is trying to lead to, all of this is trying to get us to the place where we understand that it's still Yeshua helping us. It's still the Spirit of truth. Yeshua is the truth. And hopefully we can embrace that and understand that that's what it's talking about as we go through the study, that it's not about these other things. And let's please put to bed this whole Trinitarian thing. There's a Father and there's a Son. And this Spirit talked about in John 14 is just the way the Son communicates with us. It's not a third person. It's the way he says, I'm not going to leave you orphans. I am coming to you. How? In the form of the Ruach of truth, the Spirit of truth.